Am I allowed to cross-train when I'm on the cruise ship? Something about cruise ships that's different than a lot of other jobs is it's contract work. Like it's like freelancing kind of, but the contracts are longer than if you're freelancing. And one of those issues when you're a contractor is that you have kind of your job, set job that you have to do, and then it's over, right? And so part of it, there's an expectation that you fulfill your contract, you work all the days, on your contract that you sign, that you agree upon, and then your next contract, it's assumed you're just going to do the same job, right? And the word contract it's about, the length, but it's everything. Your contract is every aspect. The contract says what job title you'll have. It says how much money you're going to make. It has your agreed upon living quarters, how many roommates you're going to have. It's everything. It's all the information about your position, and your contract is what your life on board is going to be, right? So what a lot of people will find is they sign their contract, they start working on the ship, and they start noticing other people's jobs, how other people live on the ship, other people's benefits, perks. Some other people might work less. They might have more privilege depending on their rank, blah, 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 right? Some of these things, and a lot of these things you won't know until you get on the ship. So what a lot of people do is they'll start in one position and they will want to get promoted, or they will want to change their job, or they will want to change their department, right? And that's where cross-training comes into play. The thing, it's hard though, because it's like a double-edged sword, because the companies want you to stay there. The companies want you to succeed. They do. There's such a high turnover with employees. These cruise lines would rather you stay. It's more work on their end to have to just hire new people constantly, right? So they do want you to stay. But it's hard because you work a lot, right? You have to fulfill your contract, and part of that is working every day. So on the one hand, they want you to succeed. They want you to stay. They want to not have as much turnover. But when it comes to cross-training, everyone's kind of maxed out. So it's hard to find the time for you to step away from your work in order to shadow or follow someone else who's also busy. And they have to find time to, the person training you would have to find time to show you stuff while they're working. You see, there's not a lot of spare time to fill with the free trainings, right? But they will do it. You just have to be adamant about it. I think with Norwegian Cruise Line, there was a policy that was either you had to work 2 full contracts at least, or you had to be with a company for a full year or something like that before you were allowed to cross-train. And then I assume most of the other countries probably have some policy. They're not going to hire you day one for your first contract as a waiter and immediately start cross-training you to be, an audio technician in the theater. Because it's 2 separate departments, which is also complicated, but B, you have no idea what you're doing in your current job, right? So you kind of have to prove you're worthy in your current position, and there's also obviously there's a 90-day, a 3-month period when you first get hired, your probationary period. You kind of have to pass that too, right? It makes sense. So you can't just cross-train immediately because you haven't proven yourself in your current job. You haven't proven yourself to the company anything. Whether is it worth them investing more time into you, right? To put you somewhere else. And you haven't shown that you have even the skills to do that next job anyway, right? So it takes time. I do, however, tell people one of the hardest things is getting on the ship, right? It took me 8 months of applying to many, many, many jobs, many, many, many companies before I was even offered an interview, right? So I tell people, apply for every job you might think you want to do and get on the ship. Get in the system, right? For two reasons. One, once you're there, it's easier to see what you're doing. It's easier to, once you're there, you're there, right? That's obviously going to be easier to make connections and network and meet people and blah, blah, blah. But B, if you wanted to then, instead of trying to work your way up through one company, you could go to a different company and you're much more likely to get hired from a different company already having cruise ship experience, right? So if your dream is to work for Disney, working for Carnival for 2 years probably would help you get a job in Disney. It can't hurt. I'm not saying it will. I'm not saying it's going to put you there. But having sea experience, having cruise ship experience is always better when you're applying for another cruise job. I mean, that should be a given, right? So I tell people, just try and get on the ship. Now, there's a caveat to that because working as a waiter isn't going to help you be a guitar player in the entertainment, right? Because there's different departments, obviously, but there's also different levels of how to do these jobs, So like, I can't equate certain entertainment jobs with certain jobs in the hotel because some of them are more skill-based, right? I can't cross-train to be a guitar player because that's a skill. It's like a trade, right? You have to practice that. And there's no cross-training program for that because they're hired differently. You see, so it depends on the job you're trying to get as well. I have had people ask if they can cross-train with me when I was a broadcast technician. There was a really difficult aspect to that, however. As a broadcast technician with Norwegian Cruise Line, a lot of people thought I was mainly doing stuff with the TVs and shooting video and editing video. That is a lot of what I was doing. However, on the ships that I worked on, in the same equipment room as the broadcasting equipment, there was also a lot of navigational equipment that the ship used to travel, right? So all of our stuff, my office and my equipment was under strict security, lock and key, right? We weren't even allowed to have people come into our office, technically, because of this sensitive equipment. We also had, as part of our safety drills, one of these scenarios is if we have hijackers or something come onto the ship, the first place they might go is to the navigational equipment to shut down the ship's ability to communicate with people. I was in the communications department, right? To shut down communications to the outside and to shut down navigation so the ship can't go anywhere. You see, it was very serious stuff, and I had a lot of privilege and security clearance in just my I was just a technician. I was a low-end pay, but I had a lot of I had my room key, and I had a whole separate security key with certain clearance to get to certain places, right? And that came with my job. So I wasn't given the authority. If somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, Sean, can you show me how to edit with Final Cut 7?" I can't say yes. They actually have to go through their management. Their management has to go through my management, and they have to get approval to even be allowed to come into my office. That wasn't my decision. That's safety. And I'm not saying the companies don't trust their employees in one department to another, but they do limit access to certain places just to keep things a little safer, right? You know what I mean. So unfortunately, I couldn't just cross train anybody, and the whole cross training part is actually something that the company does. So like me showing someone how to edit on Final Cut on my own laptop in my free time is not cross training. But see, I also would equate some of what I did to like a musician. I studied how to edit video in school. I had to learn specific software in order to know some of the things I was doing, right? So certain trade skills, certain the reason certain people get hired to do certain jobs is because they already know how to do something, right? I already knew how to edit. This is why I was hired for what I was. There's other jobs that are more apt to be able to train you on the ship with less experience on land. I'm not saying one job is better than the other or more important, but you see what I'm saying? Like, for me, I would say, and crew staff works very hard, and they are very talented at what they do, and some people come with certain very specific skills. But I believed when I got onto the cruise ship that I could have figured out how to be a crew staff faster than someone who didn't know anything about videography and editing and television could pick up what I was doing. I'm not saying what I was doing was super hard, but it was super specific, right? So I probably could have without being trained at all, getting on the ship, I probably could have assisted more crew staff in certain jobs than maybe they could have assisted me. Not because they're not talented, it's because some of the stuff I did was super specific to specific equipment and specific skills that I only had to learn, like over time before the ship. You see what I'm trying to say? So it's not black and white, and a lot of it I can only look through the lens of my own job. But the company does want you to help out, and actually, I mean, it's true it's possible because I had a buddy who from St. Lucia who was like a dishwasher, but he'd done it for a couple of contracts, and halfway through maybe his fourth contract, after being persistent and proving himself right, and proving that he was worthy of the next step, he was hired as the new what was the term? Oh man, this is embarrassing. I'll think of it. But he was promoted to a much better position with our HR department, right? Crew enrichment administrator. That was the job. I knew I'd think of it. He was promoted to become the new crew enrichment administrator, right? Totally different department, totally different job responsibilities. Being a dishwasher and the skills you need to do that job and the work you do for a contract during that job, totally not anything the same as crew enrichment. However, I bet you one thing that he utilized in order to be able to cross-train and become that new position was that he started in a position where he could say, I know how the crew are. I was down in the galleys. I know what it's like. And because I have the experience and knowing how it feels to be someone in that position, I believe I can lead the crew and enrich them because I know how they think. You see what I'm saying? So he took his experiences. It's like an interview, right? You take the experiences you have and you formulate them in the best way to show that you're worthy of this new position. And that position was a lot better for him. He got a better living situation. He got more money. He got more privilege, out in public areas, stuff like this. Very, very gratifying to see. And they actually, at one of our captain's meetings in the theater, we do one of those every month where the whole crew gets together and we talk about stuff. They introduced him on the stage, and he was also like a super awesome guy, right? So everybody was really happy for him. But it's totally true that it's possible. You just have to be there for a while, prove you're worthy in your current job, right? And then prove to your management that it's worth their time to put their name on the line for you to cross train. On my last contract with Norwegian Cruise Line, one of my managers or one of my supervisors put my name on the list, and I did management training. I did a whole course on management, and if I wanted to work my way up into management, that's the only way you can do it within the company, is to do the management training. And that's why I try not to knock the trainings. A lot of them are really mundane, and they're about safety, and they're monotonous and repetitive. But this one was important. If you want to be promoted into a supervisory role, talk to your management and tell them, I want to do the onboard management training. I want to do this. You have to show that you want to be a part of it more, right? Managers love hearing that stuff, right? You're excited. You're earning your next opportunity, right? So my advice is get on the ship with whatever job you want to do. Realistically, though, I would say, I don't want to say take any job on the cruise ship, because two things might happen. One, you might be so far away from what you want to do in a department so different that you really can't even make the connection to get over there, right? And two, if you take any job on the cruise ship just to get on the ship, you might hate that job so much, you won't even give yourself an opportunity to go do the job you want to do. So even though I tell people apply for every job doing everything, I still should make it clear that if you can get at least in the department you want to be in, by all means do that. For instance, I was in entertainment, and I really enjoyed that department. I felt the entertainment department, at least from where I was sitting, had some of the more lenient rules when it came to public appearances and privilege. We had some of the less set in stone schedules, and some of us worked crazy schedules, but I felt that a lot of us in our department didn't work as much as other people. Let's say waiters worked, a lot, in the hotel. Guest services works a lot, just 10 hours a day straight. I might have clocked 10 hours a day sometimes, not every day, absolutely not. And it wasn't just this constant drone. It was a little bit here, a little bit there. I could take breaks. I could go eat. I could relax. It wasn't stressful. And then my job was nice because I didn't have to deal with passengers all the time. And guest services is a poor example sometimes, because that's kind of where people go to complain, right? Whereas like if you're working in the entertainment department, you might have people complain to you, but for the most part, if people are coming to you, it's because you're hosting an event or a game, and it's your duty to be fun, right? So there's a different atmosphere there. And then like the working conditions as well, depending on the job you have. Like if you're a dishwasher, you're working in the galley, you're down in the kitchen with the machines and under the lights. You see what I mean? It's not going to be, it's apples and oranges every job. So, you should be trying to get that first contract with the job you want, but more specifically do the department you want to do, if you can. Because like for someone who really wants to be cruise staff or entertainment staff, I don't think there's anything wrong with, doing youth staff, right? So on my cruise ships, we had a lot more youth staff than we did cruise staff. We had probably 6 or 7 cruise staff, but we had about 20 youth staff. And on high season in like the summer, we would have a bunch of seasonal youth staff. So you could even do that. Let's say you wanted to be entertainment. You could do seasonal youth staff, right? Which is only a couple months at a time. Then you can, do that 1 or 2 small little seasonal contracts. Make sure you're in their face and say, I want this. I want a legit contract. I want to do this for real. Then you can get a real contract. Do 1 or 2 of those, right? Those are about 6 months each. And when you're doing that, then you're in their face and you're already in the entertainment department, and you say, I really, really, really want to cross-train for crew staff. Or what you'll see is after doing youth staff for a year or 2, you might love it there. You might realize that's where you want to stay. You might decide to try and be the youth program manager and work your way up that way. You might see that the crew staff, they're working pretty rough hours. They're getting up way earlier than you. They're staying up way later than you. They don't have as much time with their friends as you, maybe, and you might decide against it. Or you might discover, once you're on the ship, that there's a different route that you want to take within the department, right? You might want to start leaning toward other opportunities, right? So it is important to get on the ship. That is the most important thing to me. But it doesn't mean... But you still need to try and formulate it, though. The only thing I can really say is you got to get on the ship. You have to prove you're worthy, you're good at your job. Just because you're on the ship doesn't mean that's proof that you're worthy to cross-train. You still have to try hard, do the job you were hired to do, right? You know, make sure they know that you're there to work, you're there to be part of the team, you know. Make sure that you're good with your managers. That's what I do. I know exactly who to not brown nose, not schmooze, but I know who to keep on to be on their good side, right? That's something I learned, you know, even before ships. That's something that I learned you have to do. You have to know who to be good with. You have to, you know, don't now here's what I'm saying. If you get on the ship and you're like, oh, my plan is to be youth staff anyway, so I'm just going to do a bunch of crap over here and do my job poorly in this department, you'll never make it, you know. So you still have to try hard. Now, on the flip side, if cross-training seems like too long of a process, I'm not going to tell you it's a terrible idea you can still, you know, apply for jobs on other cruise lines. No harm, no foul. I was when I got hired for Norwegian, and I was still getting emails months later, years later, in response to applications I had sent to Royal Caribbean and to Carnival, you know, because that's when they found my resume, and I'd say, I already have a job at Norwegian, you know, thank you, but no thank you. But if you dislike your position here and it doesn't seem like they're going to help you in a way you want to go, you can look at another company. You're there for you. You can't do that so many times because it might come back and burn you. You know, if you're just doing one contract for one company, they won't hire you again, right? Because there's a huge process every time you get hired with a new company. Obviously, it's like starting anew every time. But it's about getting the job you want, you know. So no matter how you do it, I think it's definitely to always have a goal of where you want to be, and a reason to work hard and prove yourself. It's not impossible. Cross-training is definitely done. But it's harder to do on the ships because the departments are very divided, and you're working so much. And another thing, some of the jobs on the cruise ship aren't even the cruise line. For instance, with Norwegian Cruise Line, the spa services is not NCL. It's a company called Steiner. Steiner has nothing to do with Norwegian except for their spa is on our ship. So if you work for the spa, you can't cross-train in entertainment because you don't even work for Norwegian, right? So you want to... the art gallery on our cruise ship was a different, I forget the name of the company, but it wasn't Norwegian selling art. It was a separate company. They don't cross-train with Norwegian. They can't just cross-train with shore excursions. They don't work for Norwegian. You see what I'm saying? So, but I know a lot of people who started out working for Norwegian, and they saw people working for different departments, and they said, hey, I like the life that person's leading. I want that job. And so many people, there was a job on the cruise ship called Port Shopping Consultant, and that's a separate company, but they're brought onto the ship to help sell, they work with the ports to help sell jewelry and stuff like this. And one of the gentlemen who was a port shopping consultant on one of my ships, he used to be a broadcast technician 10 years prior. I don't know if he had done ships for the whole 10 years. Ship life is kind of something that pulls you back. It's like a black hole, right? You can't escape it. But he said he used to do my job. And, he's not doing it now because when you're a port shopping consultant, you get your own room, you get a porthole, you get time off, you make more money, right? But he doesn't work for NCL. He didn't work for NCL. He worked for a whole separate company that was brought into the ship, right? So he has a whole different set of rules. He has a whole different set of goals, and he has to deal with other people on land. It's a whole different situation. I don't know what they do because I don't work for that company. But with all these situations, there's pros and cons, right? So, and that's why I just say do your research, But more importantly, you got to get on the ship, and then everything starts to fall into place. You start to understand, oh, they work for this person, I work for this person. That's why they get this privilege, and that's why I get this privilege. You see, in any event, however, when you get there, try your hardest and be the best in your department and have a great attitude and prove that you do deserve to have the job you want. You know what I mean? Because ship life can be fun and traveling and stuff can be fun. It helps if you're doing a job you like and a job you want and a job you enjoy, because you spend a good amount of time doing that job. So in order to make ship life a better situation and a better experience all around, you should enjoy what you do. So keep applying, and good luck. And whatever job you get, if it's not the one you want today, work so you can have the one you want tomorrow.